talking about working with males and perpetrators of violence and so forth. This is the first time in the OPT we are working with perpetrators of violence, and I wanted to hear more.
The law on gender equality was passed only in 2006 and go into on force in 2007. Even though gender equality is the new concept in Viet Nam, so we our staff in the government need to have a capacity in implementation.
The best achievement is the approval of the law against domestic violence. In 2010 it has been approved by the National Parliament, and now we have two basic things we are trying, and it may be finished by the end of this year. Two national action plan, one for the gender-based violence national action plan, and another is for human trafficking. I think these two tools, along with the government capacity building, so we'll be able to reach reduce the gender-based violence and human trafficking.
One of the great problems we have in Brazil is that still we have difficulties in registering the cases of violence against women.
So people don't know what is it, domestic violence. Sometimes they think it's only household or family affair. But in fact, according to our survey, it's 34% of women were violated.
The number attract the attention of different policymakers, and after government launching that study, another consultative workshop among different partners, UN, NGO, and government sit together to discuss how to address gender-based violence in the future.
The percentages of violence against women in Morocco and girls aren't very different from many other countries worldwide. For us, the major result was the fact that it was endorsed by the government, conducted by the High Commissioner for Planning. It was the High Commissioner for Planning himself who was presenting the results and who was announcing that now the national survey is part of the national agenda of surveys. So it has been totally and absolutely, owned by the government.
Through advocacy during the implementation of this program, additional shelters were established. Initially, we only had 2 shelters in the whole of Namibia, but now we have shelters in all the 13 regions of the country.
Women receive support from the program to be informed about their rights. They know that they can live without violence in their lives. Families are selected by the program as a shelter, but it's not a shelter. It's a home of a family. They receive moral, social, psychological, legal information and services.
When Tamkeen started, there were very few multifunctional shelters that didn't necessarily abide by the international norms and standards. Not even in Morocco did we have a clear idea. So an assessment was done, some shelters were established, and now, through the efforts, through the program, we could see a lot more shelters that, first of all, abide by the rules, and also that empower all those women who are survivors with services that were not provided before. So we can always write 1,000 reports about these shelters and bring pictures, but it's only when you meet the women who have been through hell, who are survivors of violence, who are outcast, who had nowhere to go in the past, who didn't even have the law with them, because the reform is ongoing. And they find themselves in this haven where they can not only sleep and survive, literally, but also learn new skills, find a supporting community, find a voice, and find back a semblance of hope in life.
Time that we have a program like this one, where you have like 7 UN agencies, 12 ministries. So if it is the first time that you have such a program, and it is the first time that you have 12 ministries and 7 agencies working together, you need patience.
One of the most important contributions of the program to the government in Colombia to reach this objective is to the development of a multisectorial communication strategy in a national level addressed to modify the beliefs and the behavior which are responsible for the violence against women. This strategy was designed based on a study, a baseline related to what the people think, what the people feel about the violence against women, not just what women think, but men.
This National Committee to Combat Violence Against Women, which was established, I think, through a presidential decree. And it's comprised of 12 ministries, including Justice, Interior, Social Affairs, Health, Islamic or Religious Affairs. It has all the different ministries. And then a women's machinery, the General Union of Palestinian Women. So they were all part of this process, and I think for us, we feel this is a huge achievement.
The greatest achievement of them all was the reinforcement of the role and mandate of the National Machinery for Women's Rights. So before Tamkeen, before the program, the Ministry of Social Development was trying to carry out their role, its role of a coordinator when it comes to gender equality and women's empowerment and the fight against gender-based violence. And it hasn't been without difficulties, but Tamkeen came with a governance structure for the program that enabled the ministry to be present within, all the different committees at the level of different ministries, such as the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, and be able to advocate for women's rights, to harmonize the efforts of all those different actors.
I think from the onset, our joint program is based on government's priorities and key strategies for the next 5 years. So that is number one. And in a way, it kind of guarantees that it will continue and that government will source additional funding to make sure that the activities take place. All of the activities, all the entire JP is also based on UNDP. So from that end, I'm also very confident that the UN agencies will still continue with the agenda, with the priorities as spelled out in the JP.
Initially, the program is funding the NGOs to bridging the reaching the people, so the victim can come, and also a lot of communication channel we are using to inform the people that here are the centers take care of the victims of the gender-based violence and human trafficking. And in a process, we are also trying to sustain when the program will be ending, where the NGOs will get fund. So we are linking with the government so that this will be, the continue. It is not that the program finish and service center is finished, and also developing government referral protocol and systems.
We've been studying, we've been analyzing the situation of violence against women to understand how we could support the Brazilian government in giving better access to women, to shelters, to services.
We may see that women are not aware of their rights, although there have been initiatives with UNDP, for example, that have aimed to foster the knowledge of women of their rights. But the program the joint program aims to continue also in this sense.
One of the most important rights in our lives is to live without violence. Is not to be afraid of the aggression of a husband.
The main objective of the program is working on gender-based violence, fighting against gender-based violence, of course, but through the empowerment of women and girls, through establishing the linkage with their poverty and vulnerability. The key to breaking the cycle of violence against women is empowering them, and that's the philosophy of Tamkin as well. It's linking gender-based violence to the vulnerability and poverty of women.